How's it going, everybody? This is Clint with Fire Pit Sports. We have another video for you here today. We're going to try a new episode type, like a new format. We're going to call this one-hit wonders, and we're talking about one-hit wonders for NFL quarterbacks for one season. Now, everybody that gets drafted in the NFL can play football, and I mean light years better than me or anybody else that I know. And the quarterback position is considered the most difficult position in the NFL. Now, there are some that get in the league, and either they are consistently bad or consistently good. But then there are some that come in and for one season play out of their minds, even better than some of the top quarterbacks in the league at that time. And after that, they're never able to play quarterback like that again. They forget how to play. Is it a coaching situation? Maybe just a bad system that made work for one season. The teams get film on them and then shut them down. Is it injuries? Whatever the reason, they will always be remembered for that one season. So here are 5 quarterbacks that had one unforgettable season and then a completely forgettable career after that. Now, the lasting memory most people have of Derek Anderson is that meltdown he had after a reporter asked him why he was laughing on the sideline while his team was down 18 in the fourth quarter.
Television, a lot of fans are talking about it right now as a big problem with this team. Can you put into context what was going on at that moment? What caused you?
What Deuce and I talk about is nobody else's business.
But why was something funny when you're down 18 points in the fourth quarter?
It wasn't funny. I wasn't laughing about anything.
The camera showed you laughing.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Coach Gruden
That's fine.
commented about it.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm not laughing about it. You think this is funny? I take this serious.
I'm
real serious. I put my heart and soul into this every single week.
All I'm saying is the camera showed you
I'm just telling you right now what I do every single week.
However, what you might not know is he was actually a Pro Bowler for the Browns in 2007. The Ravens drafted him in 2005. They cut him. The Browns picked him up on waivers. Head coach Romeo Crennel then made Anderson the starter over Charlie Fry after one game. And then Anderson proceeded to pass for 3,700 yards and 15 starts and threw for 29 touchdown passes. They picked him for the Pro Bowl that year, and he was actually a finalist for the Comeback Player of the Year. And he would get 2 more seasons to try to recreate that 2007 magic, but it was never the official starting quarterback for an entire season again. In 2008, he'd be benched for Brady Quinn on November the 3rd, and then less than a month later, they benched Brady Quinn for Derek Anderson. Then Derek Anderson tore his MCL, and he was out for the season, and that left Ken Dorsey to finish out the 4-12 season. So next year, he's going to be the starter, right? Well, kind of. The Browns fired Romeo Crennel, and they bring in the man genius. That's former Belichick assistant and Jets head coach Eric Mangini. Anderson traded the starting position a few times with Quinn, but he was never really the full-time starter in 2008. So, the next year, he gets his chance. Kurt Warner retires, Matt Leinert's released, and Anderson signs a 2-year deal with the Cardinals, where he would eventually lose his starting job to Max Hall. He gets hurt, and then rather go with Anderson, they go with John Skelton, and that's when the whole laughing incident happened, and Anderson would be released, and then he would sign with the Carolina Panthers, where he would spend 7 seasons as Cam Newton's backup. Matt Cassel never started a game at USC. Well, he did start one game. He was a halfback against Cal. However, the fact that he never started is better put in perspective when you consider that he played behind Carson Palmer and Matt Leinart. And after an impressive workout, the Tennessee Titans were actually going to sign him as an undrafted free agent in 2005, but the New England Patriots beat him to the punch, and they drafted him 230 overall in the 7th round of the NFL draft. Playing behind Tom Brady, it's understandable that he didn't start one game for 3 years, and with nothing to go on, teams weren't going to go trade for him or sign him until Tom Brady went down with a torn ACL 2 games into the 2008 season. So, Cassel surprised everyone. That year, he went 10-5 as a starter. He threw for just under 3,700 yards and 21 touchdown passes. And then Cassel would get a chance to prove he was a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL. Cassel makes everyone's list as a one-hit wonder, and of course, I consider him one because he was never really able to match that season that he had in New England. However, what a lot of people don't know is that you can make an argument that Cassel is a two-hit wonder. After a season in Kansas City where he started 15 games, he went 10-5 as a starter again. He threw just over 3,000 yards passing, and he took the Chiefs to the playoffs. But most people really only remember his 2008 season. Cassel was given opportunities across multiple teams, but he couldn't put a season together like he did in New England, except for that 1 year he played with the Chiefs. Tim Tebow was arguably the greatest college quarterback of all time. He was a Heisman Trophy winner as a sophomore, two-time national champion, and the emotional speech that he gave after a loss to Ole Miss will forever cement him as a legend at the University of Florida. In fact, the words that he says are on a plaque outside of Ben Hill Griffin Stadium and under the words, "The Promise." Now, that being said, there were a lot of skeptics out there who questioned whether or not Tebow, coming out of that Urban Meyer system at Florida, would be able to adjust to the NFL and show the same kind of results. Well, the answer is no, it never really translated. He was never that quarterback. Tebow only played for 3 seasons, 2 of them with the Broncos and 1 with the Jets, where he was trotted out on special teams in New York. He failed to make the active roster for New England and Philadelphia as a quarterback, and then Urban Meyer, for some reason, wanted to play him at tight end. But out of those 3 seasons that he played on active rosters, one of them would stand out as one of the most memorable seasons for a quarterback in all of that decade. Tebow did start 3 games his rookie year, but the next season, after the Broncos started out 1-3, new coach John Fox benches starter Kyle Orton, and he puts in Tebow. His numbers weren't fantastic. 1,729 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. His record as a starter was 7-4. They barely won the division. They had to win their only playoff game in overtime before getting destroyed by New England. So why is he a one-hit wonder and not just a QB that finished the season out with a pretty good ending? One word: Tebow mania. Tebow mania gripped the country. It looked great, but it was pretty obvious to everybody that this was a patch job. John Fox tailored the offense to move away from the traditional NFL style and more of an RPO type offense that Tebow played at Florida. Now, that type of play wasn't used near as much as it is today, so it wasn't as sophisticated and easy to pick up. But Fox did what he had to do in order to make it work. Everybody loved Tim Tebow. I personally got to go to one of the games. I was there in Minneapolis when he beat the Vikings 35-32 in the Humphrey Dome, and he had one of the best statistical games of the season that year. The overtime against Pittsburgh, no one will ever forget that game. As loved as Tebow was, it wasn't enough to save him from being cut after the Broncos signed Peyton Manning. It was John Elway's second season as the president of football operations, and with the love people have for Tebow, having him there as a backup might really be a bit of a distraction. So he went to the Jets. Believe it or not, Steve Beuerlein was actually a sought-after free agent in 1993 after he spent 2 years backing up Troy Aikman in Dallas. He actually had a 3,000-yard passing season that year, but there was just something about him that rubbed the new Arizona coach, Buddy Ryan, the wrong way. Ryan said that Steve Beuerlein was the worst quarterback he'd ever seen, and that he was a cancer that needed to be removed. So they removed him. They released him to the expansion draft where he went to the Jacksonville Jaguars. He ends up in Carolina where he backs up Kerry Collins until 1998. And then after 10 years in the league, he gets his chance to be the true starter in 1999, and he made the best of it. The guy throws for 4,500 yards, 36 touchdown passes, and the team still only went 8-8. But that season, he was selected to the Pro Bowl over Brett Favre. Now, had Beuerlein gotten his chance sooner, maybe he could have strung this together for a few years or had a decent career at that point. But he was already 10, 12 years in the league when he got his chance, and maybe Steve Beuerlein was just a career backup that was able to string one season together, much like the next player in our list. Either way you cut it, he's still a clear one-hit wonder. The Magic Man, Don Majkowski, who I will always remember as the starter for the Green Bay Packers on Tecmo Super Bowl. Well, For one season, he truly was the Magic Man. He'd been on the Packers since 1987, and he never started more than 9 games. He split time with Randy Wright. But right before the 1989 season, Coach Lindy Infante named him the starter, and he had one of the best seasons a quarterback has ever had in Green Bay. Majkowski threw for 4,300 yards, 27 touchdown passes, and 20 interceptions. He was selected for the Pro Bowl and finished second in the MVP voting behind Joe Montana. So when the Packers signed Brett Favre from Atlanta in 1992, I'm sure they didn't see him being the future of their franchise, but unfortunately for Majkowski, that's really what happened. Injuries limited his playing time in 1990. He was actually benched in 1991 after throwing for only 1,300 yards in 8 games. And then in 1992, he tore a ligament in his ankle, and in steps Brett Favre.
What about Brett Favre?
Much like Drew Bledsoe in New England, that was pretty much it for Don Majkowski. Brett Favre took over. He became the face of the franchise, one of the greatest quarterbacks in Packer history. And that next year, Majkowski signed with the Indianapolis Colts as their backup behind Jeff George. Well, that's it for the video, guys. Drop some comments what you think about our list. Are there guys we needed to add to it? Maybe there's another category you want us to do. Don't forget, this is just a quarterback for one single season. I'm also looking to maybe do quarterbacks that had a one-hit wonder with just a team, maybe several years, but with just one team. But until that, guys, have a good one.